How to customize Business Central. An example using only the simple object designer. Hey, I'm Eric, and we're going to do a customization using the simple object designer here. We're going to do maybe a typical customization that a customer would ask for. In this case, I have totally made up a customer in my head, and through long conversations with that customer in my head, we came up with a functional requirement document looking pretty much like this. The customer is a grooming salon for pets, and this is what we came up with. So we want a table for the pets. We want some sort of grouping classification of different types of pets. We want to keep track of what customer own what pet. We also want some sort of visit log, so when a pet comes in the salon, we can tell what we did and keep track of that, perhaps with some usage of what we used during the visit. So that's the idea. And when we're looking at this one, it's important to figure out where to start. And you got to look at dependencies, and we quickly see that the only thing that does not have any pet dependency is this guy. So we can start here, then we can go to pet, then we can go to the ownership piece, and then we go to the log. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna keep this fairly quick. There are other videos on the channel where I go in detail about some of these different templates I'm gonna use for this. But in order for this video not to be very long, I'm gonna have a high pace. So here we go. I'm going to use the new feature function here, and I'm going to create a new feature. And we started with the pet type. So for that, we're going to use the data table template. It's important to say that we cannot just add a table. That doesn't make any sense. We need to add a table. We need to add the UI. We need to add the business logic that is needed, and that's what a template in the object designer gives you. So the object designer knows that if you want to do a table, then you need things around it, and so it takes care of all that. You just need to tell what the table should be about. So that's what we're going to do. So the first one was pet type, so I'm going to totally call that pet type, and the caption that users can see, I'm going to do pet space type. And I want a list page. I don't want a cart page. Maybe I want APIs if I want to do stuff in Power BI later on. So we get to the feature card. I'll just focus on the fields for now. The first field needs to have a number. Fields need to have a number. The first one could be number 1. Every table needs a primary key, so we'll tell that the type field here is the primary key. We'll use a code for that. Object designer says, hey, let's make it 20. Fine with me. I'll have it on the list and on the API. So these columns are controlling the UI. Then let's add a description field. Do a text. Do the same thing here. And then for the last one, let's add a group. So we can use an option field for that. I'll just put it in the UI first, and then I'll go to field setting and define the option members. So this could be dog, cat, reptile, horse, rabbit. So those are my groups of animals. So that looks fine. So I got fields, I got everything I need up here. So this table is done. Excellent. And I'll just take a quick look at this. Okay, so now we can do pet, because that only has a dependency to pet type. So I'll go and create a new feature, and we're going to use the same template again. So the data table template for this. We'll do pet, and for the pet we clearly need a card, because there's probably going to be a lot of fields, and we can do APIs on this one also. So same thing again, we're on the feature card here, and I will go straight to the fields. Number 1, and I think I'm going to go with a pet number scheme, just like we have customer numbers and vendor numbers and account numbers, and I want this field to be used everywhere. Then let's get a type, and the type should be a lookup. So we have a special field type called lookup, and lookup is connected to we connect it to a table, saying we want to look up into the pet type table. We don't really specify what field type this is, because the object designer take care of that, and saying it is a lookup, we know what the field type is supposed to be, so we can concentrate on just creating it. Then we better have a name for the pet. We use that on both on the list, on the card, and on the API. And then let's add some dimensional information. So weight, and we don't want that list, but we want it elsewhere on the card and on the APIs. And a height, yeah, the same thing. Maybe we want, you know, a birthday. That could be a date. And the same thing here. And then let's add some health information. So food could be a text. We'll make it 200. We'll also just put it on a card and on API. But since this is a long field, we go back into the field settings, say, hey, let's make this multi-line so we have a bigger field to type in. We could do something like feeding per day, an integer, feeding per day. Do the same thing here, and then let's know who the vet is for this animal, because there may be insurance at the salon that we need to make sure that we know who the vet is. So we'll do a lookup here also. Just put this in here, and then go to the field settings and say that now we're looking up not to a table we created ourselves, but we're looking up to a vendor table. That's pretty good, the standard vendor table. And then actually let's add a field where I say put the name of the vet. So we'll do a text 100 for that. But we want that filled out, so we'll actually go and say this is read only, because we're going to fill it out automatically when you select the vet. So I'll go up here and say field transfers, and then I get a list of the fields on the vendor card. So I want the name field, and I want that transferred into my new field called vet name. There we go. So this looks pretty good, actually. I don't think I want the big field in the API, so I can remove that again. But maybe I want automatic numbering of pets, just like we got customer numbers and so on. So I do that by turning on number series here. And the object sign says, we need a place to store the setup of what number series you're going to use. Should I create a place for that? I say, sure. We do that. And now when we close this thing, you see we have actually 3 features now, because we got a setup feature. And the setup feature has a number series field here that is, if we look at field setting, is looking up to number series. And behind the scene, this field is now connected to the pet feature. So there's business logic that knows that this one is connected, and so on. So we don't have to worry about that. The templates and the object designer will take care of all that. So perfect. I think we're ready to deal with the ownership table. So let's add a new feature. And this time we're not going to use the data table. Now we're going to use the data related table template. And this is special because it needs an anchor table. So what are we relating to? Well, in this case, we're relating to the customer. So the object designer knows a list of tables that it knows how to connect to those tables, and customers was one of them. So let's call this ownership, and the caption, let's do pet ownership. And now we need to select a primary key method. So we can either use a field, the resupply field that has to be unique, define uniqueness, or we can let the system do line numbers behind the scene. Line numbers works just like, on a sales order where you can have multiple lines with the same item number. But we really do not want the same customer to be able to own the same pet more than once. So we'll probably need to use the pet number as our primary key. So we'll use a field for that. We need a list. Sure, we don't need a card, but we like a fact box, and we can do an API endpoint also. Fact box are those in the right side of the screen with the information. So that was nice. So let's add some fields to this guy. Remember, we need to supply a primary key because we use the primary key method here. So we will say that we'll add a field called pet number, and that is a lookup. And we show it on the list, and we show it on the API. You know the drill for that for now. And lookup, I will go here and say that's a lookup to our pet table. Perfect. Then we need the name. Has to look nice. So that's a text 50. But in reality, the name is read only. So we need to go back up here. Actually, let me just add a type field also. So we have that. So we get a type, and that we can just do a code because we're gonna make this field read only again. And then let's go up here and use the field transfer. So when we do select a pet, we can take the name from the pet and put into the name field here, and then we can take the type of the pet and put into the type field here. And notice that this is from field 2 to 3 and from 3 to 2, but this list control is so the numbers doesn't really matter, they just have to be there. We close this, and we can see that this template has a list of where can we connect to the anchor table, where we can connect to the anchor table on the customer list and the customer card, and we want to do both, so that's fine. So this is done. So now we are already at 4 tables here. So we covered all this. Now we need to do the visit log, and you guessed it, we're going to use the last of our templates. So we're going to use the document template here. When it comes to documents, there's like a header and line, so it's more than one table behind the scene, but you don't have to worry about that. The object designer handles that for you. You just need to worry about what fields you want where. So we'll call this table for visit, and we can call it salon visit log. Or maybe we just want to call it salon visit. And you have the option for a posted variant, so we can edit something and we can click something and then it goes into the posted version. But let's not use the word posted. Let's say you click on finished, and then you're taken into the finished salon visit. And you know the drill, we're now on the feature card, so now it's time to add fields. I'll hit this one, and there's a new column here, so placement. So we'll do both for the first field, which will be the primary key. Yes, the primary key must be on both. We already did that. So we'll call it for visit number. Do a quote 20 and make a nice caption here. Show on the list, show on cards, show on API. I don't think we did API on this one. We can do that later if we want to. So now we can select something to be in the header. So the primary key needs to be in both, otherwise you can specify whether a field is living in the header or living on the line. So let's do the pet number, and the pet number should be a lookup. But I think we're going to do the lookup a bit differently. So we'll actually do the lookup to the ownership table instead. So we know we also get the customer information. So we'll show that on the list, and we will show that on the card. So let's continue header, and then we need the name of the pet, and we're gonna do one more, and then we're just gonna do the customer number, and we're actually going to do that as a lookup also. And I know I said we'll get the customer from the ownership, but let me show you how we do that. So now this field is connected to the customer table. So let's continue with this for just a second. We'll do header number 5. No, I am so bad at typing and created 0 lines. So let's see if I can do this again. 5 customer name, which is a text 100. We don't want that. Maybe we want that on the list. We probably do not need all these on the list, but we want that on the cart. So when we're on the customer, let's make sure that we transfer the customer name from the customer card to the customer name field here, like that. Okay, well, let's go back up to the pet number, and we set this up to be connected to the ownership. So we can do the same thing here, and we'll say, okay, name on the pet ownership should go to the name field here. But you see, here is a secret field. There's a customer number. So that ownership was the related data. So it's related to the customer table. So there's actually a customer number field, and we can see it here. So we select that and say that should go to our customer number field. So what we're actually doing now is that we're creating cascaded updates. So we had a lookup on the customer, but now we got so we get from the ownership, we get the customer number that will update the customer number field, and because we're doing that, that will then update the customer name field. And this is the point in the video where you can say, hey Eric, you named this piece of software simple, and we might be borderlining here that this is not simple anymore, but I could call it the powerful object designer instead. Anyway, that's the most complex piece we get into. Let's have a visit date field also, which is a date, and we'll just say date. Show on list, show on card. But maybe we need to make sure that we get the date field filled out. So let's make that mandatory. Okay, so let's add some fields to the line. What about a description? So we want to make sure that they can, they can type in what's happening at this visit. And maybe we want them to be able to say, hey, I used some shampoo or whatever it is. So we'll have an item number field here. That's a lookup, because now we're going to create a lookup to the item table. As you can see, in reality, it's kind of the same pattern that I am repeating over and over again here, with very little variance. So let's add a item description, which is a text here, and we'll now the drill. Lookup field transfers for item number. We will grab the item description and put that into our item description field, like that. I did it again. The classic 0 thing. Let's get rid of that. Line 13. Let's create a unit price field, which is a decimal unit price nicely here, and I'll go back and create a quantity decimal, same thing. I'll create another one. What about line total decimal, line total? Now we created, oh, that was sloppy here, line total. So now we created these three fields. What we have the option of is telling that when, let's first actually do the lookup transfer. So we will add to the item that when we select the item we want, I think it's number 18, that's right, we want the unit price to go into our unit price field. But if we go to unit price, what we want to do is we want to tell the template, because the template knows about certain fields. So we can go in and say, hey, this template knows what a unit price is. So let's tell it that this field is a unit price. We do the same thing on the quantity and say this is the quantity. And then we do the same thing on the line total. Say this is the total. By telling it that, then let's make the total read only. By telling it that, then the template can generate business logic that does unit price times quantity equal total for us. So that is pretty cool. So I think we're mostly done here. We want a number series for this also. We want to make sure that visit numbers are just numbered using number series. Now we did not get the dialog saying that, hey, you need a setup place, because if we go into setup now, we got a number series set up for this table, of course. So I think we're done in 20 minutes coding all this. So the only thing that's needed now is to see if it works. So we will hit publish, and we like to publish. So the environment, I say yes. So what is happening now is that the object designer is programming away, creating all the tables, creating all the UI, creating the business logic, like the posting function from the finish function in this case. All the code, when it's done programming, it builds a app file for you with everything in it. And then it does two things. The first thing it will do is that it will download this app file for you. That's what's happening up here. So you can take this app file, if you're working in a sandbox, as I am right now, you can take the app file, go to your production, upload it, and deploy the app there. The other thing that's happening is that this app is now getting, because I said yes in the dialog, it's deploying to the environment that we're in right now. That's what's happening on the screen behind me, and ignore all the noise here in this screen. This is just my testing environment. Look at the top line. That's what we have been doing, and we are currently in progress for deploying this. And I hit a 5, so now our customization has been deployed. So the only thing left is, let's try it out. I'm gonna do a Control F5 and reload Business Central. That's always a good idea for after you have installed something, because otherwise you'll get, oh, somebody admin changed stuff. So here we are, and I think the first so pet sounds grooming setup. Our setup table has 2 number series, so we need to add some data to our number series here. So for the pets, I'm totally gonna use blanket order number series, and for the visits, I'm gonna use the bank number series. We just need some numbers. So now we have a setup. So the next thing we need to take a look at is, let's search for pet in here. We can see we got the pet list, pet type, and the setup. So let's define some pet types, and maybe I want to create a PWD, so a Portuguese water dog. That's one. That's a dog, and then we can Siamese. Is that how you spell it? I don't know. That is clearly a cat, and then Ed. Oh, that's a specific one. That one. So we can do a Mustang. Yes, Mustang. Oops, come on. That's clearly a horse, and so on. So we got some pet types. Yeah, it works like a normal table. Nothing fancy here. So we can now check our pet list. There's nothing here, so let's go in, and if I hit enter on pet number, I get a pet number because we assigned the number series, and the business logic to do that is written into the code. I can select a type and say, hey, this is clearly a Portuguese water dog because my dog is called Spira and she is 20 kilos and 40 centimeters or something like that. I'm not sure. And her birthday is very soon, actually. I'm totally gonna, I think it's the 19th, I can't even remember. Something like that. And she eats a lot. Too much. Twice a day, and her vet is totally Fabricam. So we got the name here also added, so the pet card works really well. We could have added field groups and grouped the pet card into nice groups with the different fields. We didn't do that. You can check the other video for that. So the only thing that we now so we need to go to customers now. And we can see we got the pet ownership fact box here, so I can go into pet ownership and say that now I am on this guy, so I can say that Spira is here, and these are read-only, so I can't do anything with that, so that's perfect. There's ownership there, and now I can go to the visit salon visit list, and we have the finished salon visit list. So we can go to the visit list and do a new. We get a visit number. I can search for a pet, and now you can see here the cascading update. It happened so quickly that but we got the name and the customer from the pet, but then we got the customer name from the customer number field. So and we can say that, hey, this happened today, and I can say that she got a bath, and now I should have a, let's pretend that this is a shampoo, a very, very expensive shampoo, and we used 2 of those, and we got unit price times quantity equal line total. And when this is done, I could of course add some more lines here if we want to, so describe how well the bath went and stuff like that, and then we hit finish. And so now I kind of ruined one thing because I put in a date, so let's actually remove the date for a second here. So you know the asterisks, we had the mandatory, so I'll hit finish and I'll say yes, and we'll say, hey, date must have a value in the visit. So the logic of the template said, hey, okay, so when we have fields that are marked mandatory, we make sure to test that they have value when we hit finish. So part of the business logic, and now that is done, and our visit list is empty, and I can go to the finish. I think I bookmarked this earlier. I can go to the finished visit list here and see the read-only posted version of what we created. So that's an example of how to create a customization in Business Central using the Simple Object Designer in less than 30 minutes, and we did 5 tables or something like that with UI and business logic and everything. Check it out in the links below. Get it from AppSource. Let me know in comments if you think I missed something, or there's something you would like to also be able to do with the Object Designer. And have fun.